when the clock strikes 3 in the morning, the world is caught between sleep and wakefulness, between certainty and doubt. That hour is no ordinary time. It is the space where the familiar dissolves into the unknown, where the mind's defenses falter and the shadows grow thick with possibility. In those moments, reality stretches, and the boundaries of what is true seem to blur, allowing things from the edges of imagination, or perhaps from the edges of something much older, to slip quietly into the periphery. The night was deeper than usual, as if the darkness itself had weight, pressing against the windows, sealing every sound and every light outside. As I lay there, eyes wide open, my heartbeat thudded like distant footsteps, echoing in the silence. It was not the normal fear of waking alone in the dark, nor the momentary confusion that comes with being startled awake. What I felt was older, colder, a sense that I had been chosen, that something had reached out from the dark and plucked me from the safety of sleep. The red digits of the clock glowed faintly, casting a soft, eerie halo over the room. I stared, transfixed, unable to look away as the seconds ticked by. 3 o'clock. The witching hour. That phrase, often spoken in jest, now felt like a warning. Stories whispered from childhood about spirits and shadows crept into my mind, and I wondered if those tales had been more than simple fiction. There was a weight in the air, as if every breath carried a warning, every silence hid a secret. My thoughts raced, scrambling for reason, for reassurance, but all I found was the relentless certainty that I was not alone. The room was familiar, yet suddenly foreign. Every piece of furniture stood like a silent sentinel, casting long, unnatural shadows across the floor. The corners seemed deeper, darker, as though they could swallow me whole if I stared too long. I pulled the blanket tighter, a flimsy shield against the unknown, but it did little to quiet the growing sense of dread. My muscles refused to relax, locked in anticipation. The mind is clever, conjuring fears from nothing, but this felt different. This felt real. Then, breaking through the oppressive silence, came the sound. At first, I tried to dismiss it, to convince myself it was the groaning of old wood, the settling of the house as temperatures dropped. But the sound persisted, deliberate and slow, footsteps dragging along the hallway outside my door. Each step was measured, echoing with intent, the cadence far too steady for a house settling in the night. I gripped the edge of the blanket, my knuckles white, as the footsteps halted just outside my room. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the presence in the hallway was drawing in every molecule, every ounce of warmth. I willed myself to move, to call out, to break the spell of terror that held me captive. But my voice was gone, buried beneath a tide of fear that left me voiceless and motionless. The silence that followed was suffocating, a pause so absolute that I could hear the blood rushing through my veins. I turned my gaze toward the darkest corner of the room, and there, standing among the shadows, was a shape that did not belong. It was not the kind of darkness that flickers and fades, but something more substantial, a presence, dense and shifting, darker than anything else in the room. It hovered, unmoving, yet somehow alive, as if it were testing the limits of its own reality. I could feel its attention, sharp and cold, like icy fingers trailing across my skin. I tried to blink it away, to rationalize it as a trick of the eyes, but each time my vision cleared, the shape remained, unwavering, undeniable. Desperation flooded me, and I reached for the lamp beside my bed, fingers trembling uncontrollably. With a flick, light burst into the room, banishing the darkness for a fleeting instant. Relief surged through me, but it was short-lived. The bulb buzzed, flickered, and stuttered, casting the room in violent flashes of light and shadow. In every heartbeat, the figure was closer. 10 feet, 8, 5. The movement was impossible, unnatural, each flash revealing a new position, each darkness hiding its advance. My mind reeled, searching for escape, for explanation, but the truth pressed in with suffocating clarity. This was no hallucination, no ordinary trick of fatigue and fear. The air carried a chill that bit into my bones. The silence was alive with anticipation, and the figure stood as a living contradiction, both part of the darkness and separate from it. I fought to scream, to call out, but terror locked my voice in my throat, leaving me voiceless and helpless. Then, a new horror descended, the whispers. They began softly, almost tender, like the sigh of wind through ancient ruins. But the sound grew, multiplying, voices layered atop one another, speaking in tongues I could not decipher, but whose intent was all too clear. The words pressed into my mind, filling it with dread and confusion, mocking my fear, feeding on it. The walls seemed to close in, bending with every word, every syllable, as if the very room had become a living entity, complicit in my terror. The shadow moved, slow and deliberate, its form grotesque and fluid. It leaned forward, limbs bending and twisting, joints contorting in impossible ways. It was no longer content to simply watch. It was coming for me, savoring the distance as it closed the gap, drawn by the scent of fear. I tried to cry out, to plead, but my body betrayed me, offering only a strangled gasp as the darkness encroached. In a final act of terror, the light died. The bulb above me popped, plunging the room into absolute blackness. The whispers ceased. The footsteps halted. The silence became an entity in itself, thick and impenetrable. I could feel the air shift, the cold deepening, pressing against me with invisible hands. The presence was near, so close that I could feel its breath, a chill against my cheek, a promise that this was not a dream. What happened next is lost in the haze of fear and exhaustion. Whether I slept or simply drifted in and out of consciousness, I cannot say. But when the first light of dawn crept through the window, the shadow was gone. The whispers had faded, yet the memory lingered, etched into the fabric of my mind. Even now, as days and nights pass, I wake at 3 o'clock, heart pounding, eyes wide, afraid to look into the corners of my room, because some things, once seen, cannot be forgotten. Some presences, once felt, never truly leave. And sometimes, in the quietest moments, I know that it still watches, waiting, patient, just beyond the reach of light.